When I was 12, I made it to the highest level in gymnastics.
Shawn Johnson, a 15-year-old from West Des Moines, Iowa.
2008 Beijing Olympics.
Magical. Being able to walk through the village and see Nadal, Yao Ming, Serena Williams, it was really, really special. And then I went through a season of life where I was like, you know what? I hate working out and I am done with that. I truly think the greatest thing you can do for a child in any sport is protect their love for it.
All right, guys, welcome back to Post Run High. I'm here today with Shawn Johnson.
Thank you for having me.
How's it going?
Oh, good.
Shawn, what brings you to New York?
I launched a new kid supplement that I was really excited about. It's called Beam Kids. So I'm just trying to promote it.
Shawn and I ran a couple Brooklyn blocks. I'm curious, how was the run for you? Are you a runner?
I'm not a runner. I've ran a bunch of like half marathons back in the day, but by nature, it like does not come easy.
I get that.
Yeah.
What does your fitness look like now? Like, what is a go-to fitness routine for you?
I lift heavy weights. And that is what makes my body feel the best, feel the strongest. But like I'm in the gym lifting, doing like kettlebells, doing Olympic lifts.
Olympic lifts.
Yeah.
It's so wild because so much of your life was spent training as an elite athlete. Did your relationship with fitness ever change?
I mean, I started gymnastics when I was 3. I made the national team at 12. So I went elite at 12 and then I retired at 20. So I was an elite gymnast for 8 years and trained probably 20 to 30 hours a week in the gym. Never lifted weights, never did like running or anything like that.
And always with a coach and a team.
Always with a coach. They told me exactly what to do. After that, I kind of ran straight into a brick wall because when I retired, I didn't even know how to go into like a fitness center. I didn't know what to do with a dumbbell. I didn't know how to work out without a coach, and kind of started this whole journey of like working with personal trainers. I ended up getting certified as a trainer for a while just because I really wanted to learn. I went on to learn about nutrition, psychology. I ended up studying, just like trying to learn how to just be a normal human being.
Right? No, but that's so true.
Yeah.
And I feel like regardless of the sport, I think that is a very common experience that people go through. I have 2 brothers that played lacrosse at Yale, which was a D1 program, and they won a national championship. And similar to your experience, like they were at school with a coach, with their team, training. Once you're done playing your sport, it's weird finding your rhythm as an athlete. It is important to do what you did and like educate yourself and learn. And I think that's so cool that you always wanted to kind of challenge yourself athletically.
Always. I mean, I definitely went through those like dry spells too, where I became like very unhealthy because I was either doing way too much or way too little. I went through a session of my life where like I was doing 4 different workouts a day because I thought that's what you needed to do. And I would go do Barry's boot camp and then do, Peloton and then go for a walk or a hike. It was way too much. And then I went through a season of life where I was like, you know what? I hate working out and I am done with that. And I've since come around after having babies for the past 6 years to truly like loving it again and wanting to just truly find like strength and a normal cadence. And my passion is for it now.
All right, let's rewind a little bit.
Okay.
I want to know about your early life. So you grew up in Iowa.
Yes. I grew up in West Des Moines, Iowa. In Iowa, Des Moines and West Des Moines is different. So West Des Moines, Iowa is where I grew up. And I was there until I was 18. I loved it. It was the most perfect Midwest town, the most supportive town. They truly like uplifted my journey, my dream to be an Olympic gymnast. And yeah, had a very like normal Midwest blue collar life.
At 4 years old, you started gymnastics, right? And was it a sport that you immediately took a liking to?
Yes and no. So my parents put me in gymnastics because I was a very, very crazy, rambunctious child that thought I could fly. And I kept finding myself in the ER. I literally jumped off like our stairwell. I jumped off the top of an entertainment center. I cracked my head open a bunch of times.
Oh my goodness.
And my parents were like, we need an outlet for her. So they put me in ballet and I refused to listen. I kept doing cartwheels. So I pretty much got kicked out. And then they ended up finding a gymnastics gym and I fell in love with the trampoline because it reinforced the idea that I could fly. So I just kept going back. But over the course of like my childhood, I did so many sports. I played soccer, softball, swimming, track. I sprinted, never long distance.
By 12 years old, you were seriously competing in gymnastics. So when did you put those other sports on the back burner and say, okay, I want to go all in gymnastics?
So that was something really beautiful about my family. My family, in a beautiful way, pushed against me my whole life. So they wanted nothing more than for me to just be a normal kid, because they kind of didn't. They came from very extreme lives. But gymnastics was truly just the last man standing. It wasn't always just gymnastics or nothing. And when I was 12, I made it to the highest level in gymnastics, which is wild. I was a child, I was a baby, and started traveling internationally and competing for the US.
Now that you are a mom of 3, your 5-year-old, it's not that far away from 12,
I
right?
know.
What is your perspective now on the life you lived now having kids?
It feels psychotic. That's a harsh word to use, but I cannot imagine. I don't know how my parents did it. And I now understand so much more kind of the pain that my parents went through. My mom always says she felt like she was losing her daughter because I spent so much time at the gym willingly. And she literally would like ask me before practice, she's like, "Are you sure you want to go? Like, we can go to the mall. I'll take you shopping. We can go get ice cream." And it was always led by me, but it was truly like the love of my life.
To get to the level that you got to, how many hours are you training? What does your typical day look like?
My training regimen was very different than the stereotypical gymnast in the day. My coach had a completely different view on how to do everything, and he kind of turned the sport to a certain extent on its head because he proved you could do it a different way. I attended public school my whole like career. It was a requirement by my coach. We couldn't leave school early. Like, we had to have good grades. School was a focus. So I went to school, and then I go to practice from 4 to 8. And I did that Monday to Friday. Saturdays, I went 9 to noon. I would take an hour for lunch, and then I'd do 1 to 3. And then we had Sundays off. And on Sundays, we were always instructed. We had very, very strict guidelines that we were never allowed to work out outside of the gym. So if we were ever caught like at a fitness center or going for a run, we would have consequences where we couldn't come back to practice.
Wow. And was that kind of a sneaky thing that people wanted to do just because you couldn't?
I think our coach started seeing the obsessions of it start to kick in the higher level we got, and his entire focus, which I was so blessed to have him, his entire focus my whole career was protecting me as a kid and making sure that I still had this like obsession and passion for gymnastics and that didn't burn out. So he would have us like skip practice to go to school dances or go to a football game. Or in the summer, I remember he would finish practice like a half hour early, and we would play outside, and like he bought all these like bounce houses, and we'd have like carnivals. He was just a giant kid, and he wanted to protect that in us.
Right. And he wanted you guys to feel like you were living a normal childhood,
Yes.
right? Which I'm sure your parents were so grateful for too. So, what is like the traditional path like?
All the girls were homeschooled, or they would school at the gym, and they were training 8 to 9 hours a day. So they were doing 2 4-hour sessions every day. A lot of girls were working out all 7 days a week with no off season of any kind. There was no social life. And it was truly just like this sheltered, I think, healthy view of more is better, when I think that truly just leads to like negative returns and burnout. And we've seen a lot of pushback on the traditional back in my generation way, which I think is beautiful.
What is the gymnastics schedule like?
So gymnastics is year round. There's no off season ever. So we are in the gym every week. There's no week off, which I am kind of against. I would love to see that kind of change maybe. I think seeing kids take time off is a good thing. But the gymnastics cycle in a year works basically like, and it shifts based off of what level you're in. But say the elite level, there are competitions year round. We would probably weight them heavier in the first 6 months of the year. The Olympics usually always fall in the summer. So we're like prepping to compete in the summer. As an elite athlete, you probably have 3 major competitions you're prepping for
A year.
for the year. And that's
Oh, wow. So, most of the time as a gymnast is spent training.
Always. When you're growing up in like the recreational levels or like the lower competitive levels, you probably have, it's been so long, so I could be completely off on this, but like maybe like 8 to 10 a year, but that's within a season. So that might be 8 weekends back to back, or 8 every other weekends kind of in the fall, but it's usually like the fall season.
At what point into your gymnastics career did you take it from those lower levels into the higher levels?
Pretty quickly. Gymnastics has this like scale where essentially you start at like a level 1, and every year you're going up a level. So you go to competitions, and if you meet requirements and you get certain scores, then that qualifies you by your like roster to unlock the next level. And then after you've completed all like 10 levels, you can opt to try for the Olympic level, which is called elite. So I just did that over 10 years pretty much. So I started qualifying when I was 5, I think.
12 years old, you make Team USA, and then 15, you won World All-Around Champion.
Yeah.
What did those years look like to get from, okay, making Team USA is a huge accomplishment, and then all of a sudden it's like you're at the level where you're winning this incredible accolade?
I would love to be able to like give you the strategy, but because I was so young, it was all my coach who was like strategizing how to like get me there. But it was essentially when I was 12, I qualified to my very first US championships, and that's where I qualified to the team. From there, I started traveling internationally and doing the international circuit, is like as we call it. And that's where I started just getting reps in on the world stage and seeing what the competition looked like and kind of gauging from there, what do I need to get better at and get stronger at, and where are my scores in comparison to the girls who will be at the Olympics in a few years. And it was kind of like just going into all these different world markets and seeing the Chinese, the Russians, the Romanians, the Brazilians, the Australians, and saying, okay, here's where I am. Now, what do I need to go shopping for in the like world of skills and master to be able to go to the next market and win?
At what point do you feel like your life really changed and you were suddenly in the public eye?
I would say it started at 15. When I won world championships, things started to shift where I had companies coming to me and saying, we'd like to market you for the Olympics. And I think that made it harder because up until then, I didn't really have that noise around me. But the year leading up to the Olympics, it was a fine balance of trying to stay focused on getting there and appeasing the marketing, which is what you also want because you want the eyeballs and you want to make a living.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was it like in school?
It's going to sound really weird, but I always said I kind of lived like a Hannah Montana life.
Right. It is a double life.
It really was, where I never, ever talked about gymnastics in school. I wanted to be Joe Schmo at school. I didn't want to be recognized. I didn't want people to know about this like outside life, but I just like never shared about it. And so I would go to school and just be like me. And then afterwards I'd go to practice and like win world championships and
just the casual life after school. And then did you end up graduating high school or did you have to take a step back?
it was very interesting. I competed the Olympics as a junior in high school. So I ended up leaving high school to go to China, took my homework with me. And then after, it always sounds weird to say this, but after the Olympics, I didn't realize what would happen, like the notoriety. And so it unfortunately didn't allow me to go back to public school because of like security for kids and just like the safety. So I ended up having to homeschool my last year before I graduated.
I like the double life reference, really being able to enjoy your childhood and enjoy being in public school with your friends. Like that is kind of a hard shift, especially at a young age.
It was. I didn't expect it because I truly just expected to go back to high school.
You're like, I've already got this sport thing going on. Like, why can't I just go back to school?
When I was also like applying to colleges, and I was excited to go see my counselor and be like, okay, let's get my applications in and like all these things. But it's a blessing being able to like do that.
Is it when you're already a professional athlete, you can't go and play the sport in college?
Yeah. So before NIL, I had to have a very hard conversation because I dreamt of competing in collegiate gymnastics. College gymnastics back in the day was like where you went and had fun in gymnastics, and it wasn't like the serious elite world. It's since now taken a whole different level. So like truly elite gymnasts are competing in college at an elite level. But when I was 12 and I was deciding between that, I basically had to sit down with an agent because I got scouted. And it was this option of you can go pro and you can take endorsements and money, or you cannot and like preserve your eligibility. So I could have competed at the Olympics and preserved my eligibility, but it made sense for me to be able to like cover my expenses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because it makes sense. It's like you have all these incredible brands coming to you. It's kind of an opportunity to just have this incredible moment in time and moment in your life. You can't turn that down.
And at the time, my two big things that I had on my list to check off was like, I wanted to compete in college, but My biggest dream, this is going to sound weird, was to be an orthopedic surgeon. And I wanted to get my education from Stanford. So I was kind of like weighing those. And I thought by the time I competed at the Olympics, I might be burnt out of gymnastics. So at least I could pay my way to go to college and become a doctor.
And you got into Stanford.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to say that. Did wanting to become an orthopedic surgeon come before or after the ACL tears?
Way before. I wanted to be a doctor my whole life. I love
That's so
just
cool.
everything about the human body and biology and physiology and anatomy. And I shadowed open heart surgeries and brain surgeries. And
Okay,
I loved it.
That is so intense.
I'm fascinated by it.
2008 Beijing Olympics. What was it like walking into the arena, being an Olympic athlete?
Magical. I would relate it to like the first time a kid walks into Disney World. It just felt so grand to me and so spectacular. I truly feel like the Beijing Olympics went above and beyond. Just how they executed those Olympics was incredible as an athlete. And so it just all felt like magic. Something a little interesting, I didn't get to walk through opening ceremonies. Gymnasts usually don't because our first competition is the next morning.
So it really is your first moment at the Olympics is like actually stepping
Walking
into
the arena. And it felt just as magical. I remember watching the opening ceremonies and thinking like in the morning, I'm going to go compete, which was really special. But it's just the whole atmosphere, being around the world's best athletes, walking through the village and seeing fencers and long distance runners and just basketball players from all these countries and knowing that like they had a similar journey to a certain extent. It humanized everyone, but it was really cool.
And putting on your Team USA outfits.
One of my absolute like dreams in my gymnastics career was getting my very first USA leotard. And when I got that, I was a kid in a candy store. They're stunning. And then being able to like wear a red, white, and blue leotard and you have like the insignia and like it just makes it feel like you make it. Something that I wish someone would cover, and maybe they have, I just feel like I've looked for it and they don't, is when USA athletes head off to the Olympics, you go through something called processing. And it's where almost all the athletes, sometimes they'll like opt out based off of like scheduling, but they meet up in some city in the United States where you go through like the rules of social media and what you can and can't say and how to represent the United States, but you also get all the gear. And it's usually some sort of warehouse where you get like a shopping cart and you go down the rows and down the aisles and you get all of the Olympic gear you're going to wear at the Olympics. And I remember it being like the coolest thing ever. And you're there with like the USA basketball team and you're like, it's so cool to be able to share that moment as USA athletes.
What was something from your Olympic experience that surprised you that you maybe didn't expect growing into it?
Back to what I said, the humanizing all of these massive figures, being able to walk through the village and see Nadal and Yao Ming and Serena Williams and know that like you're all there for the same thing. It was really, really special. And I just love sports and I loved sports my whole life. I followed so many different sports. And so I think that was why it was so cool at the village, was seeing all the different bodies and different countries and different talents, and also feeling so warm and welcome, I think was so fun because I was 16 years old, walking into the cafeteria and the rowing team being like, do you guys want to sit here? And like, what's your, it was really special.
Because is gymnastics typically the youngest group of people?
Yeah.
They are. Yeah.
By far, especially back then. I think it's since gotten a little bit older, which I love seeing. You're seeing more and more like late 20s and stuff compete in gymnastics. But in 2008, we were 15 to 19.
It's so wild to think about.
Yeah. Babies.
Babies. And I feel like the craziest thing about it is at such a young age, you were competing at such a high level. Applause to your parents, because it's so hard also to know what to do, especially since they weren't gymnasts.
I think what happened, and this was like a whole just luck of the draw thing, the gymnastics gym that I started out at was like the only gym in our city. And then out of nowhere, this guy from China moves to Des Moines, Iowa, and he opens a gym closer to our house. And
it was like fate.
It literally was fate, but it saved my parents gas money. And they were like, we're going to switch here because we need to save extra dollars. It was the greatest thing to ever happen. He truly like held my parents' hand. And I remember I was accelerating a little bit faster than my parents were comfortable with. And they would have like hard conversations with him. And they're like, I don't want to let her move up because she's going to be with older girls and that's not appropriate for her age. And it was truly this like just working through things. But
have your parents ever reflected with you on that time, especially like now that you are a mom? I'm curious, has your mom ever given you advice almost?
we're talking through a lot of stuff now, my mom and I, especially since my kids are starting sports. And my daughter actually got scouted for a sport, and just trying to like bounce that off my mom and be like, I don't know what to do here.
Is it gymnastics?
No.
Wow. Figure skating?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know.
Those are just like in my mind, like those are just like the most beautiful sports. So I love it. And ballet.
And she does ballet too. But it's this hard reality as a parent of I teach kids and I talk to parents all the time. And so like as a removed person, I can so easily tell a parent like it's not important. Like she's literally only 5. But then when it becomes your own kid, I literally come go running to my mom. I'm like, I don't know what to do here. I don't want to hold her back in something that could be her treasure in life. But I also want to help foster her passions and protect them like they did for me. So it's just a fine balance. But I truly think the greatest thing you can do for a child in any sport is protect their love for it, which means to a certain extent holding them back.
What is the Shawn Johnson approach to parenting when you're watching your kid from the sidelines?
Oh, I like sew my lips shut and
Really?
I'm just the biggest cheerleader.
Okay, I love that. But you can say you're competitive though.
Oh, I'm very competitive.
I love
like
that.
I'm dying inside.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you know how to do this. What are you doing? You know, it's not like the coaching side as it is like I know their potential and their abilities. And so like when they have hard days, I don't want to say that because I always just want to be their cheerleader.
After the Olympics, you solidified yourself as one of the biggest names in the sport.
Oh, thank you.
And then 2 years later, you and I talked about this before we started filming, but we share kind of a traumatic injury.
My coach, who I've talked about a little bit already, he kind of went against the grain and had a different system with things. A lot of times in gymnastics, coaches were very strict. You couldn't play other sports. You couldn't kind of go be a kid. He had no rules. He's like, I want you to go try everything. I want you to go do everything. You can go horseback riding. You can play soccer. You can play lacrosse. Like whatever you want to do. He said, but the only rule I have in my gym is you can't ski, which I abided by. I officially retired the first time, right after the Beijing Olympics. And I was like, you know what? I want to learn to ski because I've done everything else. And I loved it. I fell in love with it. My 18th birthday, we went skiing. It was cliche, last run, last day, easy run, nothing. It's just a freak accident. I took a fall and my ski didn't come out of my boot.
It's the most awful injury, I swear, because then it's like you just have a lifetime of a compromised knee.
I was really fortunate my entire career to be very, very healthy. I had shin splints. I had a couple stress fractures, but other than that, I was healthy. No major surgeries, no breaks. I remember as soon as it happened, I was sitting on the mountain and I knew. I was like, that wasn't a normal sound or feeling. I ended up skiing down the mountain, which is wild.
No, wait. I don't think that's wild because you can still like
For sure.
after I tore my ACL the first time, and again I was actually the same exact way. No breaks,
Nothing.
no other weird injuries, no concussions, like nothing. And then it was the ACL.
And it's sneaky because for a while, I think I went a couple months before I even went to the doctor, which I don't advise. Like if you feel anything's off, just go straight to the doctor to see. But I had learned as professional athletes, like compensating and stuff, I knew if I ran or walked in a perfectly straight line, I was fine. I just couldn't turn. And if I turned, I would buckle. And I remember when I finally went to the doctor, they were like, oh, honey, like
It's your ACL.
You're blown. And did the full surgery, rehabbed. And I don't think I fully rehabbed properly. I think I cheated that system a little bit. Went back too early, went back into competing in gymnastics. I wanted to feel strong again. And that was the first time I felt vulnerable in my body. And that's honestly what brought me back. Got completely back to competition. And it was through competition when I finally retired a second time. I went back to the doctor and they're like, it didn't hold. Like it's super loose. So I redid it all again. I've had 5 knee surgeries.
Oh my God.
MCL,
knee?
meniscus. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
just cleanups for the rest of our life. We're a part of this club.
Yeah. And then I had the similar experience where it was like, I got the surgery the first time. I tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus in that one shot. So, I guess the MCL repairs on its own or whatever, or it can. I think it could, because that's like the blood flow to that ligament.
Yep, sure is. So you were non-weight bearing for a long time afterwards.
A long time.
Which is the hardest part.
The hardest part too, I feel like, is as an athlete, and obviously you were on a completely different level of what an athlete is. But for me, it was like, I was a 3-sport athlete, and all of a sudden you go from being at peak performance to
like zero.
And
actually negative, because you have to get back to zero.
And the hard thing about an ACL tear is you can't go any faster than anybody else.
Nope.
Because it's a ligament, and it's not like it's like a muscle that we strengthen. It really is just leaving time for the graft to heal.
Yep. I kept feeling like I could beat the system. I'm like, oh, I'll do it a little bit faster. No.
But let's fast forward to today.
Okay.
You're a mom of 3. You're an entrepreneur. You've got a whole business going for yourself. What has it been like? What are you currently up to? What are you excited about?
It's a lot of fun. My husband and I worked together. We started doing this whole social media world. Couple things we're really excited about. We've been investing in women's sports a lot, and I love it. I've been learning so much about women's soccer and women's volleyball, and we've just been really trying to give back to the women's sports community, especially now being a mom to a daughter. The more we can do there, I think the better. And then my babies are my life. It's because my babies that we started Beam Kids. I had this frustration as someone who's obsessed with nutrition and exercise, that there is a need for a supplement for a kid, which sounds weird, but if you know kids and toddlers, they're picky and they like Cheetos and peanut butter, and like that's it. And at the end of the day, I felt like they were lacking. My kids see my husband and I wake up every morning and make protein shakes and take our supplements and kind of like prep our bodies, and they were always asking for ours, which they couldn't have because of things that were in them. And I was like, why isn't there something like this for a kid? And so I went out and got all the supplements I could find for kids, and to cover all of their bases, they'd be taking like 8 gummies a day, and it's just sugar and candy. And so I went and made one. I selfishly made it only for my children. It was this incredible powder that you mixed with milk, and it made it taste like chocolate milk, but it was a prebiotic, a probiotic, a greens blend, so like kale, broccoli, all the stuff, and then a multivitamin. And after 6 months of them taking it and loving it, I was like, maybe I should like give this to other parents. So we started selling it.
Last question is, knowing what you know now, what's one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Oh, stop caring what other people think and have fun. I lost a lot of my joy in my sport and in my career over the years trying to please other people. And then when I stopped trying to please them and I just truly had fun and found what I loved, things started to work out better.
Well, Shawn, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for running and chatting with me.
Yes, anytime.